Hello everybody, so glad you could join me for this wildcloud platform demo. In this video I'm about to show you how you can manage 1,000 websites as if it's only one. We're going to show you that we spin up sites that are hosted in the cloud. The entire platform is hosted for you and that you can control from a single source. So let's get started. All right, in front of me I have a product overview that we've called the WAS client, because a few days ago I recorded a video that showed you how you can automate your selling process, meaning you can build a web shop just like Shopify or Wix has, where you can sell website subscriptions. So people can actually choose a template, they can choose the functionality of their site, buy it and get started right away, just like any other website builder, but this one is built by you on WordPress. So I have this overview and I wanted to continue my previous video, which I will link in the description, and build on that by showing you how you can then manage all of your sites as if it's only one. So in front of me I have 3 websites. I have a site for actors, I have a site for dentists, and these 2 sites were spun up automatically as part of our demo template. So if you want to get started with wildcloud and you want to have a storefront that works out of the box and has a couple of sites that you can experiment with, these are the ones you will get. And then my test one website is the site that we launched using the storefront after we had configured it to our personal details. And this one was based on the actor website as well. So I have 3 websites. Now let's open up the tenant overview. Tenants in WPCS or wildcloud by WPCS are just websites, but they're really WordPress installations that you can use as websites, but you can also use them, for example, to build a SaaS. That's why we wanted to call them tenants, to emphasize that you don't always need to use them as websites. So I have here my tenant overviews and we can have a look at the WordPress plugins. And what I want to show you here is that these WordPress plugins are the same for all of these websites. And that's because on wildcloud, you develop your WordPress websites as if it's a SaaS product. What I mean by that is that you develop it from a single source, just like you would a multi-site, but in a very safe and scalable way. It is not a multi-site. All the sites are single site installations, meaning that you can use the entire WordPress ecosystem to build your product. You can migrate them anywhere and they still work just fine, but the way they are controlled is via versions. So we have here our tenant overview, and each time we would spin up a new tenant, it would appear in this list, but all these tenants live in versions, as you can see right here. So this is the V1 version that this one corresponds to. And as you can see, I have 3 tenants in my version. So what is a version? If I open up the version, you will see that it's just another WordPress installation, just as you're used to. And this is your master development environment. Some also call it the staging environment for all your websites at the same time. Because really that's what it is. This is a WordPress installation that you use to build out your product. So this is where you install your plugins, this is where you build out your pages, this is where you upload content, anything you want to get your customers started right away. And then what you need to remember is that every time you build something in the version and you deploy what we call a snapshot, this will generate basically a zip file containing all the instructions that your tenants will receive. So what I mean by that is that every time I do something in the version, I update my tenants, but only on the code level. So what does that mean? So the code level basically pertains to the plugins, themes, and language files. What I mean is that if I install a new plugin, let's just say Jetpack, for example, and I have that plugin installed right now, and I go back to my version overview, and as we showed previously, we don't have Jetpack right now, and we deploy the snapshot. So we have to give it a name, and in our case also a comment so that you know exactly what you did. In this case it's just Jetpack installed, but obviously In other occasions, you will be more expansive and more descriptive. And so right now, we're generating a snapshot, and this snapshot will then overwrite the code of my existing tenants inside of that version. So all 3 tenants in that version, and also new ones that I may make or have on other versions. I currently don't have any other tenants on other versions, but say if I did, these tenants in that version will receive the latest snapshot. So everything in that snapshot they will receive on the code level. So again, plugins, themes, and language files. I keep saying code level because there's also another side to it, which is the database. In the database, you store stuff as pages, content, uploads, configurations of plugins, whether they are on or off, how they are configured. That's all stuff that you store in the database. And the beauty of the wildcloud platform is that even though all sites share the same code, the databases are separate. So they are in fact individual WordPress installations that are hosted in the cloud. So they can scale separately. They are self-healing it when they break. They share the same code, which you can control from a version, but the database is separate. This allows the site to take on a completely different look and feel, right? So as we showed you earlier, you have 2 extremely different looking and also behaving sites that are basically cut from the same cloth, right? They are sharing the same code. They are basically like in the same way, but we configure it and we design them completely differently so that they facilitate different use cases. They are for different customers, but I can manage them from a single source. All right, so my snapshot is done. And as you can tell, we're doing this all in real time. So right now we're updating, or rather refreshing the pages for all these tenant overviews. And if we go back, we see that we have Akismet available for all of our tenants. So you'll notice that the site, I cannot update the database, right? So even though I just added this plugin to the code of the site, I cannot automatically activate the plugin via the version. I can using scripts or PHP scripts or must-use plugins. I can also just do it by clicking on the plugin and activate it here. And so by activating it in this dentist site, I have individually and locally activated this plugin for this particular site, but it is not active for this one because again, the database is separate. All right, so we just showed you how you can use versions and version updates that you deploy via snapshots to update the code of all of your sites. So why would we do that? Because now we can streamline the development and maintenance of our sites. We can update plugins, we can install new plugins, and we can also collectively change the version of WordPress or the version of PHP. But to do that, we need to employ a much safer way to manage all of my sites as one. And you might have guessed it already, we have here a version number 2, and version number 2 has no tenants inside. So the way that you make a version is by going to the Actions menu and create a version. And when you do, you can give it a name. I always like to call them progressively because you only really need 2 at any point in time, right? You need the one version that has your production sites. These are the sites for your customers. This is not a version that you would like to meddle with as you have your production sites inside. And every time you create a snapshot, you automatically send the changes to your new version, which is a very unsafe and very direct way of messing with your tenants. So instead what you do is you create a new version and you make sure that this version does not have any production sites, not have any of your client sites inside of them, so that you can safely and uninterrupted develop your sites before you introduce that new functionality to your customers. But a new version is also an opportunity for us to change the version of WordPress and also the version of PHP. And as we have chosen that, we can now choose to base our new version on another version that we have and on another snapshot. So this is our latest snapshot of the V1 version, and we're now creating a new version. And as you can tell, this does not have any tenants inside, which is great because it's isolated, right? But it is, in fact, an absolute duplicate of version number 1 because we just deployed the Jetpack snapshot, and this version will have everything inside. So not just the code, also all the database changes. Because whenever you use a snapshot to deploy something new, to provision a new tenant or a new version, you will in fact receive the database included. Only after the version and the snapshot has been provisioned can you no longer update that on a database level. All right, so this may sound like it's a bit much at this point. So let's just develop a couple of tenants and go over the process one more time. So again, tenants are websites. Websites are the products that you sell to your customers. So if I wanted to generate a new website right now, and I wanted to base it on something that I have built in the past, I would, for example, choose my V1 production version as the base, and then the snapshot that I created most recently, the Jetpack one, as my template. And then I will say, this is my test 2 tenant, press enter, and now we are creating a new website. This, by the way, is a process that you can automate via the storefront, which I have shown in another video, which I'm linking in the description. You can automate the sale and launch of these sites. And the way that we propose you do it is by selling people subscriptions, because now you are adding an almost passive recurring income stream to your business. So in just a few more minutes, this site will be ready. It will contain the exact same functionality as all the other sites in this list, but we can then further customize the site by changing the database. And because the database is separate, it does not influence the other sites. So as we wait to spin up these sites, let's go back to our version number 3, open up the editor to it. Let me just close the other version for now to not confuse ourselves. Go back to the plugin overview and add a new plugin, or just a couple actually. Just do this. All right, so we're now installing new plugins, and after these plugins have installed, we will go back to the console overview, which is right now, and deploy another snapshot. So V3 has now turned into our staging environment, right? We are developing, we are further improving our product for all of our customers at the same time, so that we can maybe charge more money, or we can improve the value, therefore increasing retention. That is the idea, right? So install 3 tenants, plugins. I didn't really look at what we installed, so I could have been more descriptive, but I am not in this case. So now our version 3 has a significant code change compared to V1. So, you know, in this demo, in this fake scenario, we could conceivably say that this is now an improved version. This is a better product, and we want to ship it to our customers in just a few seconds. As we wait for the snapshot to deploy, after which we can move the site so that we can introduce these new functionalities, let me just point out that you have a big red button, and in this case it's still grayed out because this version is currently deploying a snapshot, but these are bright red. And that is because we charge for every hour that you have a version available. Having a version available simply means that you can access it very quickly. You can open it up in just a few seconds. You can also shut them off. When you shut them off, we don't charge you for it, because this is the multi-tenant environment. What a multi-tenant environment is something that we explain on the cloud scaling platform, the cloud scaling page, and it's something that we will dedicate another video to as well. But in short, a multi-tenant environment means the environment in which you control all the code of all of your sites, right? So we can shut these off, and when you shut them off, nothing really happens. Your sites still work the same way. You can still spin up new sites. You can still use the storefront. All it means is that if you want to use it again, you press the button again, and it will just take 45 seconds, and then it's launched. And that's all you really need to know, and it will save you a lot of money if you shut them off before logging off, right? So we just installed 3 new plugins, and we know for a fact that these plugins are not available in our tenants because they are currently in version number 1, right? So let's just go ahead and assume that this will not break any of my sites, right? Normally I would move a new site to this new version, or maybe I would generate provision a totally new site that is not even connected to one of my clients, for example, and move that to the new version to test it out. And then when I'm confident that it will not break this particular site and perhaps also not the other ones, I will move the other sites. But in this particular case, for the sake of brevity, we will move all of our tenants to the new version. And as we do that, the code of version number 3 will be sent over to all of my sites, which means that in just a few seconds, these sites, without any downtime, by the way, will have the improved code. They will have the newest version of PHP because that's what we deployed in this version. They will have the newest version of WordPress. They will have the additional 3 plugins, and perhaps I might have also updated my other plugins, and I will send that over to my sites as well. So this is how I can continuously develop all of my sites as if it's only one. So whether I have 4 sites or 500 or 5,000, the process works in the same way. It is very simple and it's very elegant. But what if my sites do break? What if I notice that after moving these sites, I now have created a plugin conflict because I have configured multiple plugins in a different way? Or something else happened. You know, as a WordPress professional often does, WordPress plugins don't always play nice. So conceivably something could happen that would break my sites. So this is why we use another version to improve our sites in, because by creating a version 3 and installing our plugins there, I have created a safe space, which is version number 1, to roll back to if something happens. Because say, for example, this actor site, which I know is not going to break, but say it did, for some reason whatsoever, I can just select it and move it back to version 1 immediately, right? And therefore I change the code, I roll back to whatever happened and create it back in the safe space, fix the problem, and then move all of my sites back over to v3. And when I have done that and I'm completely confident that everything works, I can set it as production, therefore making this the version in which everything happens. That is now my safe space. Also, by setting your version to production, you make sure that if you have a storefront connected that spins up sites automatically, it will always be done in your production version. So let's talk snapshots one more time, because we have handled the version snapshot part. So every time you do something in your version, you create a snapshot. This snapshot sends code changes to the tenants inside of it. You can also use this snapshot to create a new tenant. When you do create a new tenant, the tenant will receive the code as well as the database. But what if I wanted to further customize my sites? What if I had multiple snapshots that share the same code base, but I want the database to be different so that I can actually differentiate different templates? This is possible by creating a tenant snapshot. So going to the tenant overview, I can create a snapshot from here, therefore saving the way that this site looks, right? Because this site and this site are different. And maybe I want to sell these 2 different sites as different templates. And I can do that by creating a snapshot. I have already created a snapshot for this particular site. So if I go over to my V1 snapshots, because that's where I made it, I can see that I have created this tenant snapshot. And so what I can do is I can create a new tenant, I can launch it in my V1, I can use this tenant snapshot, and when I do, I can say this test, and I can create this new site based on this snapshot, making sure that it has this look and feel. But because I have created it in my V1, I will make sure that it has all the same functionality that is appropriate to the last snapshot. All right, let's go over the the domain overview of my tenants. Because as you know, these sites are hosted. We make sure that they are independently scalable. So obviously we want to be able to connect a domain to them. You can only connect domains to tenants and not to versions, because tenants are the actual live sites that you are selling or managing or having, and versions are only for internal use. So you don't use a version to share with your customers. You only use it as your internal staging environment. So you can connect the domain by adding a domain, changing the A records with your domain provider, adding the domain name here, and you're good to go. Another thing you can do on a tenant level is set a PHP constant. So for example, here I have determined a WPCS tenant role, which corresponds to the storefront. And if you want to know more about this, I would recommend you watching this storefront video. But in any case, this is a role that we assign to make sure that every site that we sell gets the right functionality activated. And this is how I can further distinguish my plans to my customers in a way that does not require any manual work from me. I can set my backups. So I can have my backups twice a day, all the way down to once a month and everything in between. I can manage my plugins, but by the way, I can also manage my plugins on a version level. So if I click on the name of the version and I select my sites, I can manage my plugins from here. So if I wanted to activate a new plugin that I've just installed for all of my site, so for example, I wanted to activate Akismet, I can do so, and now all of my tenants are going to have this new plugin activated, therefore unlocking this functionality for my customers. All right, so how does one get started? How do you end up with an environment where you can spin up multiple versions, spin up multiple sites, create as many templates as you want by creating snapshots, either from the version or from a tenant snapshot? You can do that by signing up to wildcloud. When you do, you will land on the WPCS console and you have a number of options. So you can start from scratch, which means that you get a free blank canvas. You can build out whatever you want to do, and you can launch your versions, install your plugins, you can do whatever you want. That is the create from scratch option. You can import a site that you've built in the past. So any site will work. If you have created very expansive work for an enterprise client, import it onto our platform and you can resell it as a website as a service like that. Or you can use a simple portfolio site or a marketing funnel that you've built in the past. All you need to do is follow this route, import your site, and you are pretty much ready to go. And then if you want to spin up a storefront off the bat, it is completely free. By the way, all of these options are free. But if you want us to give you a WooCommerce store that is preloaded with plugins that we have selected for you and curated, and we also have a WAS client plugin that we have built for you, which is entirely free, and it talks to applications that we launch for you and automatically generates API keys. If you want all of that out of the box, you create this, or rather you choose this option, and then I would also recommend you to watch the storefront video. And then finally, and this is more for another video because this feature is coming soon, we have the option to select a blueprint. This means that we will provide you with an actual WAS application that you can get started with right away, and it will even connect to a storefront, so you almost have to do absolutely nothing. I would urge you to watch that video when it comes out and use this feature to launch your website as a service right away. All right, thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to do so and ask me in the comments, or send us an email, or send us a support ticket. Our team of engineers is happy to help you get started and explore this platform, and we cannot wait to see your success on the platform. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the new one.